Are you looking into using Flash for photography, but you're confused where to start because of all this terminology and, quite frankly, all the available options we have? Well, in this video, we're looking at getting started with Flash photography, and we'll talk about most of the things a beginner should know, especially when they're purchasing their first Flash. Welcome back to the channel, and if it's your first time here, my name is Paco. I'm a photographer based in Manila. As we explored in previous videos, photography is all about light and controlling that light. But what if the amount of light we're getting is not enough, or it's not facing the direction we want? This is where Flash comes in. Now, the topics we'll cover will be the pop-up flash that comes built in with your camera. We'll talk about external flash and using it on and off camera. And we'll go over some features and terminology, some things you want to look out for, especially when you're purchasing your first flash. So, pop-up flash. Now, the pop-up flash is the built-in flash on your camera. You usually see this in entry-level and mid-range DSLRs or mirrorless cameras. And it's called a pop-up flash because it pops up. Now, it's not the best flash to use, especially if you're into portrait photography. It's right on top. It's very directional. So it'll give you those shadows around the neck, just below the chin. So not the best to use, but if you're in a pinch and you need light, it's there, it's an option, and it'll work. Not the best, but it'll work. So that's a pop-up flash. Now, what we want to do is actually use an external flash. So an external flash is something that you'd purchase, and it connects to either the hot shoe of your camera, or you can connect it onto a light stand. It's important to note here that because your camera will have a hot shoe and it's unique to your camera brand. So make sure that when you're purchasing a flash or any accessories that connect to the camera hot shoe, that you're purchasing one that's compatible with your camera brand. To give you an idea, this is the hot shoe for the Canon, right? There we go. So you can see that there, it's got all those metal contacts for the pins. It's different from, say, a Nikon or a Fuji. Or, for example, here, it's different from a Sony hot shoe. So the Sony hot shoe, you just get that one round pin there, but it has more contacts right in here. I don't know if you can see that there, but yeah. So each camera brand has a unique hot shoe configuration. Just make sure that the flash or whatever accessories that connect are compatible with your flash, or with your camera rather. Okay, so external flash or third-party flash, and external flash on camera. So the most obvious question a beginner may ask is, why would you use an on-camera flash, especially if you're using one that has a built-in flash? So this will connect to your hot shoe over here and you'll have it on camera. Now, the answer to that is because you can control the direction of this flash. Now, it's great for run and gun situations, that's when you'll use it. But basically it's when you need a quick setup for light and you can't set up a light stand and lug this light stand around wherever you go. What happens is you use it as a bounce flash. So if you have a ceiling, a low-hanging ceiling, you could face this flash and say that instead of facing it forward, you can face it up. It fires up and the light bounces from the ceiling going down. You can also face it off to the side. So if your subject's in front of you, angle it in a way that it goes to the side and it'll bounce off of the wall so you get lighting from the side instead of having lighting directly forward. You can also use the bounce card. So some flashes come with what's called a bounce card. So it'll have a diffuser, a diffusing panel, and a bounce card. And what that does is if you're facing it up, the light fires upwards and bounces back down, but some of that light goes on the bounce card and bounces forward. So you have a nice fill light. So that's one way to use on-camera flash, or probably one of the best reasons to use on-camera flash. Now, off-camera flash, this is personally where I think all the magic happens. Off-camera flash, as the name suggests, you'll be using the camera, the flash off camera. That way you can control the position of the light, and you can better modify the light to control the quality and how that light looks, the quality of the light and how it looks. So a couple of things to consider when you're using off-camera flash. Since you won't be mounting it on the camera, you'd need what's called a wireless trigger, also known as a wireless remote or a radio trigger, radio remote. They usually are one and the same thing. And what happens is you won't be mounting the flash on the camera, you'll be mounting this remote onto the hot shoe of the camera, which allows you to control. Every time you hit that shutter button, this trigger will tell the flash to fire. Also from here, you can control the settings of that flash. So if you increase the power, decrease the power, you want to change the modes of the flash, that's all possible through the wireless trigger or wireless remote. Another thing you'd use, obviously you'll need a light stand to mount your flash on. You'd also need, if you're going to use some sort of modifier, you're going to need a mount. So the mount will connect to the light stand, and you'll connect your flash to the mount, and then you can connect these modifiers. So I'll show you here, I've got a nice clip here where I've got a one light setup. I've got a Godox V1 on a light stand connected to the mount on top. And what you see there is a softbox, a 65 centimeter octabox, softbox, or 24-inch softbox. It's got nice double diffusion panels, and I can even connect what's called the grid to modify the spread of that light. And it's great for low-key lighting, low-key portraits. So there. So modifiers, they come in all shapes and sizes. You've got umbrellas, soft boxes, strip boxes, grids, and many more. And we're not going to talk about that much here, but there's so much you can do with off-camera flash, and so many ways you can modify light to get the look that you want. So there, that's off-camera flash. Now we're going to talk about features and terminology. These are some features you're going to want to look out for. Some flash units may have all these features. Some may only have some of these features. Some may have just one. But the general idea is the more features a flash has, the more expensive that flash would be. The less, the cheaper. So the first feature we want to talk about is TTL, or through the lens. And the best way to put it, to simplify it, is think of it as auto mode for your flash. This allows the flash to adjust automatically based on the settings you dial in on your camera. So you dial in your settings on your camera and take a picture, and the flash automatically thinks of or figures out how powerful it should fire. Without TTL, you're always going to be on manual, and you're going to be adjusting the power of your flash. So something to consider. If you don't need TTL, the flash would most likely be cheaper. Another important thing to look out for is high-speed sync. To explain high-speed sync, I have to explain what sync speed is. Sync speed is the highest shutter speed you can use with flash without activating high-speed sync. So for example, on my Sony, my sync speed is 1/250, meaning if I'm using a shutter speed below 1/250, without high-speed sync, I'll be good. The flash will function properly. The moment I go above 1/250, let's say I use a shutter speed of 1/500 or 1/1000, it won't work properly and I'll get these weird shadows across my image because the flash is not firing in sync with the shutter mechanism. And that's what you see. You see those weird shadows across your screen because that's a shutter curtain. It's blocking the light. So to address that, to use higher shutter speeds, the flash should have the feature called the high speed sync, or HSS. It allows you to go beyond the sync speed and go to shutter speeds like 1/500, 1/1000s and above. So it's something to consider, especially if you're going to use fast shutter speeds. If not, then it's a feature you don't need and it's going to reduce the cost of the flash. You can look for a flash that doesn't have high speed sync. We talked about earlier, the next feature we talked about is about triggering the flash, off-camera triggering. And we talked about using wireless triggers or a remote or a radio remote, right? But that's not the only way you can trigger a flash. Some flash units will come with what's called optical slave mode. And the flash has a sensor. And what optical slave does is you can use the pop-up flash on your camera. When you take a photo, that pop-up flash will fire, and the sensor on the flash will see that and fire the flash. So it's a great way to reduce the cost of the flash. So if you don't need a wireless trigger, the flashes you can look into are ones that don't have that wireless radio built in, wireless trigger feature built in. So it reduces the cost of the flash, and you don't need to buy a wireless trigger or a radio remote. You don't need to buy one of these things. So you're saving some money there. And yeah, you can just use the pop-up flash to trigger the other flash off camera. It's a good way to save money, but I don't recommend it because, especially if you're going to use off-camera flash, and most especially if you're going to do portraits, that's not really something you want to do. You want to get a trigger and your flashes off camera, and it's a great way to control multiple flashes at the same time. So there. So those are some things you want to look out for. So I just want to share, if you're starting out with photography and you're looking for answers, you may want to consider this playlist. I've created a playlist here which contains everything that a beginner would go through, some questions they'd ask, and what they need to learn to fully understand how to shoot with a camera and get into photography. So if you're starting out, check that out. It contains a lot of info, and I try to make the videos as thorough as possible. If my videos don't answer your questions, you might want to check out this Facebook group. I'm going to link it down below. I created a Facebook group for beginner photographies. It's called the Photography Learning Space. We're just starting out. We've got about 30 members in there, but it's great if you have questions that you want to ask that I didn't address, or specific scenarios, things you need to figure out. It's the best place to reach out and contact me and chat about things. But yeah, I hope I can see you there. So there you go. This video was just an overview into flash photography in some terms and usage. So it should give beginners a good idea where to go from there, especially, depending on what they want to do with their photography. If you made it this far into the video, a big thank you to you. Consider dropping a like and subscribing, especially if this helped you out. And keep on taking photos, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!